Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stronger Roots podcast. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Laura Richards, and she is a person that I've been following on TikTok. And she is a coach, an author, a podcast host, and a speaker. And I am so interested in diving into this conversation. We finally had a chance to kind of line our schedules up and make it work tonight. Very off, very, very short notice. So thank you
Yes,
very much for
of course.
accommodating that. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of jump in and talk about your story. And you can start wherever you'd like, or,
Mhm.
tell me whatever you feel.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
first off, thanks so much for having me on here to talk about this because I think it's important because I like talking about it since you found me on TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, um Almost 3 years ago when I got divorced, I really thought I was getting divorced for irreconcilable differences after 32 years. And I just always thought my husband was really difficult. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't figure him out and why we couldn't make the simplest things work in our marriage. It was so difficult. I did everything under the sun, therapy, we did couples counseling, I did Bible study stuff, we did groups and so many things.
Mhm.
And we could never figure it out. And I never understood why. Now, I was told I was the one who was difficult. So that's sort of what I lived off of is that I had to be better. If I was better and not so difficult, project much, so,
Right. Right.
I just thought if I was better, then he would be better, modeling that behavior, whatever. I also believe if you treat people like gold, I believe treating people like gold. If you want that back, I just go through the world like that. What do you think's going to happen when you treat people like crap,
Hmm.
And so we divorced and I started healing and I went on the internet, started hearing the word. Actually, I heard the word gaslighting at some point. And so then I started seeing more videos with that. And then I started to hear about narcissistic abuse, and my entire life made sense. Like, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what was happening to me. It really put the puzzle pieces together for me. And I wasn't sure, and we definitely can talk about like he's not diagnosed, and frankly, a diagnosed narcissist seems like an oxymoron to me, but
Right.
but I would, we can definitely talk about I call him a narcissist because he has all the traits, and I think it really helps when you target your healing to what you went through,
Hmm.
to understand why things happened. And that's how I help women when I'm coaching them is I'm very targeted because they come to me and say like, what about this? And what do I do with that? And it's like, I can tell them, well, this is why it happened. And this is why he's doing this.
Hmm.
So anyway, the end of the story of that is when about 3 months later, I had suspected he was like, messing around with somebody before we got divorced. And 3 months later, I found out they were dating. And that is when, for sure, I had like a bolt of lightning, the beautiful mind. I had like all the things. It just was a rush of information. I was like, oh,
Everything
this
made sense.
this was everything. It made sense. It really helped to for it to make sense because I had a name for my pain. And then that just started my journey on healing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I've heard it be referred to, and I love this phrase, is like you're sleeping beauty and you kind of wake up
Oh my
and the
gosh, yeah.
fog lifts and you finally get to see things as they are instead of what you thought that they were. Or,
Yes.
it's like you have such clarity over your whole life and you're like, oh my gosh, it now makes sense. Like this was happening
Yeah.
because this, and
Yes.
and so the other thing I was going to say is there's a common pathology with a lot of these narcissists. So
Hmm.
when I'm talking to people, I find like, oh, he was, accusing me of cheating. He
Right.
was the one who was
Yes.
cheating, or he was
Yes.
accusing me of doing this, but he was the one who was doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like common projection, right?
Hmm.
It's
It
like,
is.
and it's so funny because I mean, it's not funny. It's actually very traumatic what you go through, but
Right.
it's wild to see that
Hmm.
there is just a blueprint that you
It's
can talk
wild.
to anyone and you see it and you're like, wow, this is crazy how this all unfolded. They're like, yeah, me too. I had the same similar thing. And I'm sure you went kind of through that whole post-separation abuse and that kind of thing where I
A
mean,
little of that. In Nevada, we don't have to separate.
oh,
So yeah, it's very easy to get married or divorced. Feel free to come on over. You know?
wow, did not know that.
Yeah, so we don't have to be separated. We went through the divorce process for about 6 weeks, and at the end of the 6 weeks, she said, if you're going to file, you will be divorced and immediately because no contest divorces. And we didn't have minor children. We had split everything 50-50. I know now that I should have had my own representation, and he probably hid money from me, but that's also very common, financial abuse.
Yeah.
And so, and this is the thing about it is I didn't know that I was in abuse. And so I was still very much this quiet little mouse. I did not have a microphone. I was this quiet little mouse of a wife. And so we're sitting in the mediator's office, and he's saying like, this is what we need to do. And she's saying like, is this good? And I'm just like, yeah, sure, that's good. Everything's fine. And I just remember that very clearly. I didn't have a voice, even though this was half my divorce. Now, I was on a podcast and we were talking about that. And she's like, you should have had your own representation.
Right. Always.
And
Yeah.
so, oh, wait, yeah, right. But that was not told to me.
Mm,
And so now, of course, I'm telling everyone that like you have to get someone to represent your side because I didn't know I was in abuse. And also, I didn't, if I had somebody on my side that could have said, okay, well, what do you want? And
hmm
also, what do you think? Because I was scared to bring up that I thought he was hiding money. I was very scared
hmm
because now he never physically abused me, but that doesn't matter. Psychologically, I was
Right.
abused and that was enough. And I was a shell of a woman by the time we got divorced. So
hmm
he's off living his life doing whatever he wants. This is very common.
Yeah.
It's very common. They don't just, they're not out there being homeless or whatever, because if they're homeless, they sure went to the bar and found their new supply to go live with her,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean,
So,
the sad part about it is they replace you pretty quickly. I mean,
yeah,
while you're healing and you're, grieving and you're
growing and yeah,
growing and going through this whole thing, they're out finding the next person. And
yeah.
it's a very common thing. They, often can't be alone longer than a few
No.
minutes, just, so
No, it's heartbreaking. And I for
it
sure
is.
when even though I was suspecting because we had issues with women in our marriage, I was suspecting this woman, whatever. It was still painful when I found out. It was devastating, and I didn't sleep for 3 days. But the first thing I said out of my mouth was, "Oh, I wasn't crazy," and that really helped with my healing process. So then, what then really helped is knowing that narcissists, and I'm just going to use the word narcissist because that's what mine is, and I'm not, and we can definitely talk about it, that everybody calls their ex a narcissist, and we can talk about that, but so narcissists like to have a supply ready to go, waiting in the wings, or they will get one immediately. And it's because they can't be alone. It's very shame-based disorder. So
Mhm.
they can't they're not sitting around going, what just happened in my
Yeah.
32-year marriage?
Maybe I should
They
get
don't
into therapy and help myself figure out what just happened and all
know.
that.
Absolutely. No,
They're not
they
doing
didn't. No, they don't think they're doing anything wrong.
that. Right.
You were, and I'm really blunt about this, so I hope your listeners can hear my heart because I'm really blunt about it because if we are not, we will get stuck in that trauma bond. And I was stuck in the trauma bond for a long time with well-meaning people who were ill-informed telling me to think of the good times. No,
Right.
we don't do that when we were in abuse because the good times were intertwined with abuse. And also that keeps us trauma bonded longer.
hmm
And that's a chemical reaction and we have to break it. So I don't care that I spent 33 years with him. I don't care. I speak horribly about him because I have to remind myself what he did was dirty. He just did me dirty. And how do you do that? How do you do that to your children? And you just blew up somebody's life for what?
Yeah.
Some new, you know what?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like it's a disgusting way to live. And
I think what you just said right there, I mean, is the trauma bond keeps you connected to them
yeah,
because you want to, especially in the beginning stages of, divorcing or separating, you
yeah,
want to remember, well, look at
right.
this, look at what we used to do, or look at that. And he was so good at this, or whatever, or she was so good at that. And what
Yeah,
we fail to realize is like, if someone was horrible all the time, we would have no problem leaving them. We would say,
right.
like, "Oh my God, you're awful," like move on
Yeah,
with your life. But the fact of it is like they sprinkle the good stuff with
exactly.
this
Yeah,
horrible stuff, treating you horrible, saying names or, verbal or mental abuse.
yeah,
So many women that I've talked to too get so hung up on the fact of, well, it wasn't physical abuse. He
right.
never hit me or punched me, or, you should just get over it because it wasn't like that.
Yeah,
And, mental abuse is horrific and
yeah,
it's so hard to heal from
it is.
because there's a lot of like self-blame that you is already
Right.
indoctrinated into your system that
Yeah.
you're gonna, blame yourself. Was I bad? Was I,
Hmm.
and then you spend your time in therapy and the therapist looks at you and says, "Are you kidding me? Like you didn't deserve any of this?"
Right.
So I
Thank
think
God for healthy people about that. I wanted to say that,
exactly.
it doesn't, so think about even physical abuse.
Mhm.
Even people who aren't hit and stay just for fun.
Right.
They stay because they are also psychologically abused. And that's why all of us, everyone in abuse, is psychologically abused, even if it was physical. Though I understand that women, because women have said that, I wish you would just cheat. I wish you would just hit me, something so that they have like a clear out.
Right.
But this is your permission to,
Yes.
if because I didn't even want to be alive anymore. He
Mhm.
didn't have to, he just was driving me away to the point where I didn't even want to be alive anymore. So he didn't have to do anything to me. I would have done it.
Right.
And that's the point it gets to. And that's very common because you
Mhm.
don't know that there's an outer you. Well, you're stuck in freeze mode.
Yeah.
You're stuck so far in freeze mode, you can't make a decision. And leaving feels really hard because you've been so psychologically manipulated.
Yeah. I think I the other day we had a person on our podcast and she shared that she had gone through three different suicide attempts
Oh,
because of what abuse she kind of sustained during that marriage and how her family just kind of turned against her, and it was like, oh,
mm,
what's wrong with you?
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's so sad that that is actually kind of what happens is you get so reduced to
Hmm.
nothing. You are a shell of your person and
Yeah,
you don't even know once they leave and that fracture happens. You know, it's like waking up from a dream, a
yeah,
nightmare,
yeah.
and the beginning stages of healing are so rough. I mean, I think
So
about
rough.
taking myself back in that time
Yeah.
and how heartbreaking and
Oh
horrible it
my
was.
gosh. So,
And
I mean, so much crying. So
very
much
much,
crying.
very much. And I think that you have to go through those stages of grief
Yeah.
and realizing what you had kind of thought that your life would be and you had a very long-term marriage
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I think that it it really does take a toll on you because you
Mhm.
identified with this person so much and
Right.
built this person up and when it all comes down,
Yeah.
there's a quote that I love from Glennon Doyle, and she said, destruction and then construction.
Love it.
And so it's like you burn it all down, and then you
Yes.
slowly get to rebuild your new life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was about rebuilding, and it was
Yeah.
about replacing all the good, the things in my life that made
Yeah.
me feel good, and the good, safe people around me. And
Yeah.
I just
You need
I
to do
I
that.
find that so. I mean, when we all get in these women's circles and we start talking, I mean, it's not just women, it's men too that have
Yeah.
these narcissistic exes and go through hell.
Hmm.
Um, but it's amazing that we have such similar stories to share.
I know.
And it's, I mean, actually scary. And so, I was thinking about our society and what is making this okay, this type of behavior okay. And do you
Yeah.
have like any answers to that? Because I'm trying to figure it out myself. What?
Well, I know I've heard Dr. Caroline Leaf talk about how do raise your kids to not be narcissists. And, one of the things is that it's a very, so it's very shame-based, but it's also emotional neglect often from the mother. So my ex for sure had emotional neglect from his mother. Okay, look, all of our parents were born in the 30s. So
Mhm,
no
mhm,
one's going to therapy for their trauma. And everyone had major trauma and nobody dealt with it. So I always recommend therapy and then being honest and then learning how to talk to your kids or even well yourself, even maybe your kids are a little older, talking to them, not just being like, "Oh, great job getting straight A's," but
mhm,
the effort and
mhm,
those kinds of things. And so when in society, we're so societalized to be like, okay, everyone got straight A's and you're the best and all that. And I was never the straight A girl. I was the middle of the road girl. But I would think my effort was important too. And I don't feel like that's celebrated at all. Like, you know, thinking about like, do I have undiagnosed ADHD? Who knows? And I think back to school with women and girls in ADHD. And I think, oh my God, it was so rough in school. I'm
mhm,
like, so why don't we praise the effort and those kinds of things? So to this day, that's what I've learned. But you have to start with self-love,
mhm,
self-love and boundaries. So when I'm working with women, we have to work on our self-love and boundaries because that will radiate for the rest of your relationship. So my kids, we're really rough on them. While I love them dearly, I was married to a narcissist. And so while he wasn't a narcissistic parent to them, because that's different, we had a high demand for our kids because he was in that shame. And his family was, if you don't do well in something, then you're sort of a failure, right?
mhm.
Doesn't matter. You got to be, oh, okay. Well, if you would have applied yourself, and then we have to hear about it at every Christmas and every this, and remember that time you got a B in science or whatever. I would get some, by the end of my marriage, I would say to my in-laws, I'm like, would you stop talking that way? Like, they didn't like me because I had a mouth.
Yeah.
But those are the things I was stopping them from talking a certain way to my kids.
Mhm,
So my kids didn't all do the traditional thing.
mhm,
Now, my oldest daughter, she's an oldest, so of course I'm an oldest. We always follow the rules and we're the good girls. We're
right.
societalized that way. So went to college and then she got married and she had a baby. And it's like when we got divorced, that kind of blew up on her and she said, "Oh, so I followed all the rules, and dad was sitting there saying, we have to follow these rules.
Mhm,
These are the rules. Like you find a husband, and then, you graduate with college, you get a nice job, you have babies. But then dad goes, oh, by the way, I'm getting rid of your mom and I got a new girlfriend.
yeah.
It was really so anyway, all of that to say, Dr. Caroline Leaf really talks about, behavior. She talks about, brain health, all that. But that's what she talks about. She's like, you praise the effort. You don't praise every A, and you have to win at all costs. We have to look at ourselves because if we don't love ourselves, we are going to live vicariously through our kids and be like, oh, my kid is the president of whatever. And let me tell you, sometimes when my friends post, I'm so jaded at this point. Sometimes, you see friends are like, oh, my child graduated
Yeah.
from high school,
I get it.
valedictorian or whatever. I'm like, my son squeaked by.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I'm the same amount of proud
Yeah.
because
Right.
because I had to have the conversation. Are you going to graduate? Yeah, I guess I will.
Yeah.
And it's like that's all he could give me. But I was like, well, that's good. And I want you to graduate because that should be a goal. And And
It's
so
funny.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I would just want to say I have that same thing where, you have your Facebook friends or
yeah,
your Instagram friends or whatever,
yeah,
and they post their kids and oh my God, I'm so proud of their great
yeah,
honors and th they're the top of
yeah.
their, and all this. And it's like, that's great. But
Hmm.
at the same time, I hope that that child never falls off that pedestal, that you're putting him on. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a hard fall.
Well, I want to talk about that because our middle son, our middle child, I never seen so many accolades on that middle child
Yeah.
graduating from high school. Okay. This is the one that, and my son knows I talk all about him on every podcast because his antics sent me to therapy. But listen, he never had so many accolades. We never put that pressure on him. That was not us. And that was too much pressure on himself
Right.
because also he thought that's what he had to be because that was also what he was getting from the grandparents,
Mhm.
not my parents. My parents were like, because we were all average.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but all the accolades and then went what I would say downhill from there because it was too much pressure to keep up.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I do. I see that. And I'm just like, gosh, I hope that their kids never disappoint them or
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in pumping your kids up and being great,
Yeah.
cheerleaders in the world, but sometimes it's a little hard.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of rewind the
Yeah.
conversation a little bit. And so when you found out that you were in this narcissistic relationship,
Yeah.
what was like you have an aha moment, I feel like,
Mhm. Yeah.
when you're going through this. And was there something that happened, or was there something that you just kind of shifted? It was, was it during a therapy session, or was it talking to
Mhm.
one of your friends and you're like, something is not right. And so I'm gonna just like, figure it out. And the moment that you feel like figured it out, what was
Yeah.
it like? I mean, for you.
Yeah, when we had talked about it briefly earlier, is when I was on full no contact with my ex, even though so weird, instinctively I was doing things that I coach women to do now, but I didn't know he was a narcissist. But I was like, I am going full no contact with you. I don't want to talk to you. I told everybody around me, no one tell me what he's doing. No one. I want to know nothing because I know he's going to end up with that woman. I don't want to know anything. I will be devastated. I am going off to heal. Everybody, shh. So so someone accidentally told me that they were dating. Well, I guess your ex-husband's dating so and so. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And so that's when I started kind of piecing everything together. And when I started talking to my therapist, but I just like dove into reading and watching videos and all that. That's why I love, like you said, like there's so much information on TikTok and everything. I just started seeing videos everywhere, started looking up things. I had people telling me, oh, listen to this podcast and do this and try these things. And I was like, it was amazing. So that's what I started doing and started unraveling really my entire life of
Hmm.
like, how did I get here? Because we don't blame for abuse, but I would like to know why I chose such a clown. And actually, Laura has a pattern, and every person I've ever been with, every boy, because, before that, every boyfriend I had, everything, they were all like, well, and it's hard because they were all young, so who knows? But it's like I saw a pattern. It's like I just had a pattern of, will you love me? I need to be loved. Will you love me? Okay. So then that was all I needed. I had a pattern of being loved. So, or I wanted to be loved. So that's what I started doing is kind of unraveling that and then went to a divorce group and we can kind of talk about that from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And I think there often is this dance that happens with a narcissist and an empath. And that
Yeah.
seems to be the common kind of theme. And and what it really is more about attachment style.
Yeah.
So one is an avoidant attachment, and one is
Yeah.
more of like, I need somebody to tell me, or
Yes.
I'm scanning the room to make sure everybody is okay.
Yes.
And if somebody's not
Hmm.
okay, I feel that, kind of thing. And it's just interesting that those types of people connect. And,
Yes.
the narcissist, avoidant type person,
Hmm.
sociopath, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah,
often, have these characteristics. The empath has these types of characteristics, and they just merge together and they find each other. It's like, one is looking for this and one has this to fill, and you're constantly filling
I know. It's
that
amazing.
deep, dark black hole all the time, and
Yeah.
it's,
And I think that the avoidant attachment type of person, the narcissist in this scenario, is looking for those people that are empathetic. They're givers. The
yeah,
people who, they may, let you off the hook every once in a while if you, they'll see if you can take a joke or they'll say something. They're looking for those people because they want to mirror you and learn those patterns.
right.
And that's why a lot of them, why I named my book Married to a Nice Guy, because so many people thought he was so nice. I heard that all the time. Oh my gosh, your husband is so nice. And I'd be like, where?
Yeah, right,
What
right.
are you talking about? But he was a covert narcissist. So, of course, at home, he was different than out in public.
Hmm.
And so that's what they do. They're mirroring you, they're learning this, the way you work in society. They see the way you are with your friends. They see that you're a giver and you give them second chances and all that. And they take full advantage of that. They will take full advantage of that. And I say this, maybe people don't want to hear it, but I want you to know that like you're really falling in love with yourself because they're mirroring you. That's what they're doing. They're studying you and mirroring you. Because the kids are not allowed to talk to me about their dad because it gives me nightmares still, but every once in a while I hear something and I was like, oh my gosh, he's really acting like her. But what else is he going to do? He's the same person that he always was. So,
Yeah. Well, they're chameleons also. They,
yeah, yeah,
pick new things and they become something different. And you're
right.
like, wow, okay, I didn't know that. But yeah, so
Right.
I mean, it's interesting how they adapt to the circumstance. They mirror who they're with. And
Yes.
yeah, so I mean, I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
So how's it been on your kids? I mean,
Hmm.
without getting into real
Yeah.
specifics, because I feel like kids are kind of off limits,
Yeah.
as they are, processing their own trauma from,
Yeah.
everything. But, you know, did you get the support from your kids? Did they see what was happening, or did they,
Yeah. Well, they saw more than I thought they did. And actually, my two oldest actually texted me when we said we were getting divorced. They texted me separately and told me they were proud of me because they knew I was miserable. So they really knew, they really saw things that we think that kids don't see. But my gosh, our oldest was 29
Mhm.
when we got divorced. So they've been really supportive of even me talking on the podcast and writing a book and all that. They don't watch because they don't want to know what dad did, but they support me and they told me that. I wanted to know that. So I also don't know if they have a full relationship with their dad because we don't talk about it. That's their thing. They've decided to keep their dad and my ex-husband as two different people so that they can cope, and that's the way they're coping. And do they like what he did? No. I don't think they have a relationship with the evil stepmother. I'll tell you that. Like, I don't think they have a relationship with her. I know that there were a lot of words that were said to me when it had been about 3 months, they had been together immediately and bringing them around, bringing the new girlfriend around the kids and acting like nothing was wrong. And the kids really wanted to process that. Well, they were processing that with my sister because they had nobody else to talk to because I was on full no contact and I wasn't talking about him. So once we started talking about it, man, we had a lot to talk about. It's so, I don't know how you feel about your dad, but our dads, they're our dads, and we put them on this pedestal and we love them and all that. And man, what a fall from grace.
Yeah.
And they struggled with that and went to therapy over that. And we talk about it. My kids are, my oldest 32 now. So we can talk very openly, but there's certain things like my youngest lives with me and he will say, "Can I tell you something about dad?" It has to be really important to the story, but because he's not allowed to talk about him, not to
Mhm.
me anyway.
Yeah.
And he used to even say like, "Okay, I'm heading out the door. I'm going to dinner with dad." And I started telling him, "Can you just not even tell me that part? Can you just say, 'Hey, I'm going out?'" And that's all that's it.
I
So
love
that's where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you've really made some really strong boundaries
Yeah.
about having no contact.
Yeah.
When I mean, and it's so hard to be co-parenting with this person who also caused you trauma, and you're
Yeah.
trying to, how do I navigate these waters? And they give you like the gray rock method and
Yes.
you respond only to like emergencies, or you respond to this, or trying to
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
get information back and forth and
Yeah.
apps and all that kind of stuff. But I love how you did that for yourself. Like, I want no contact. I
Thanks.
don't want you to mention his name. I want
Yeah.
you, if that's dad, and then this is separate, who
Yeah.
I, and
Yeah.
so that's, I'm sure it helped
It
with
worked.
healing, you
It
know?
really worked out with my healing. It really, because let me tell you, this is what I say about the first 3 months of my healing when I thought I had just gotten a divorce for irreconcilable differences.
Yeah.
It was like I had a cup of tea for some cancer. So,
Mhm.
oh, you have cancer now. Here's your cup of tea. Because the minute that I found out about the girlfriend and like I had the whole brain explosion that this was narcissistic abuse, I'm like, I was re-victimized.
Yeah.
That was my next day one. I was completely dysregulated. I didn't sleep for like 3 or 4 days, like literally didn't sleep. I would like fall asleep from sheer exhaustion, but I had to wake right back up because I was having nightmares. I was so devastated because for 7 years I suspected this woman. She wasn't the only one. I mean, it was just what I allowed. I was trained to allow it. It's
Hmm.
what I allowed. I was not okay with it, but I watched it. I watched him groom her right in front of me, and I knew it was going to happen, and I'm okay with that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it- at this point, it's like if you need to choose somebody else rather than someone who has been faithful to you, I wouldn't even like ride in a car alone with another man.
Yeah.
Like I was very faithful. I don't have to. I don't
Right.
have to go into all my checklist of how faithful I was, but I just know that when I walked out of the marriage, I felt good about myself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Had a clear
and
conscience
he
of
can
like,
he can,
yeah.
he's like, "Oh, I did." And that's how I feel. I had a clear conscience and my kids did too, as far as, oh no, my internet connection is unstable. Is it okay on your end? Sorry about
It
that.
it's
Okay. I don't know. It
it
said
should
it
be
was
okay.
unstable.
Yeah, you're good. You're
Okay.
good.
I don't know. I have everything off. So, and my kids are good too with how things went down, how I've been healing, and the things we talk about. So
Mm.
now we've gotten to the point where we barely talk about them or we say, "Can I tell you something?"
Yeah, yeah.
It's usually when karma has done something and my son wants to tell me about it.
Well, I mean, I'm really, I just have so much respect for you for
Thank
being
you.
able to do that, And so when you decided to start speaking out, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that was part of the healing journey. I think you start out very quiet. You're very
Yeah.
introspective, and you go like, I feel like it was kind of like a cocoon. I just
Yeah.
very much cocooned myself
Oh, yeah, for sure.
into
Yeah.
a world of therapy and of EMDR and all
Mhm.
these different type of healing modalities, and stayed quiet about everything.
Yeah.
And then there comes a time on your healing journey that you're like, okay, I'm ready to speak. I'm ready
Yeah.
to do what I need to do. And I feel like everybody kind of gets to that point where you're like, okay, I'm ready. What do we do?
Yeah.
And do we do a podcast? Do we write a book? Do we do both?
Right.
Do we become coaches? Do we,
Yeah.
So tell me about what you decided when you decided to write a book.
Yeah. Well, the podcast came first. But what happened was I was still healing. I actually made a couple of petty videos on social media about him and that he was with another woman, whatever. I never said his name, didn't, those kinds of things. But I was being really petty about it because I had such a need. I had been told to not talk about things
Right.
really, I broke down all my life. And so I was like, and so we're supposed to be quiet now? No. Do you guys know what he's doing? And I had a lot of people who were like, well, yeah, but he didn't hit you, so it's not really abuse and, blah, blah.
Right.
Insert all the stupid things here. And so I made some petty videos. I literally had people sit me down and say, like, I just don't know that you should be making those videos. And I was like, but this is what I want to do. He told me I could never talk. And so now I'm talking and doing whatever I want. And
Hmm.
that sort of started when we were going to get divorced. And he said, we can't post anything about our divorce until we're finalized. And actually, there were some things going on. I didn't like the way some things were happening. And I said, why does he have to tell me what to do? So I actually made a post whenever I wanted to,
Right.
and said we were getting a divorce and whatever. And, of course he was mad. So of course, because they want to control you. So, but that's kind of, I started to find my voice in that. I was also in therapy and that was really helpful. And I just had a lot of pushback, but there was a point where I was like, I think I want to talk to other people because a lot of my friends were coming out of the woodwork saying like, I went through this too. And I was like, really? And so I went to a divorce group and I met some great people there and they really helped me to um see some other information that people were actually talking about this on podcasts and YouTube and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So people are talking about it. So I started to like learn from them, like, how are they doing it? What are they talking about?
Hmm.
And I was working with a coach and I said, I want to do a podcast. And she's like, because she's the owner of the company that does my podcast. And she's like, okay. At first she was like, I don't know if you're ready. So I did a little more healing. There wasn't like a deadline, but it was just a little more healing. And because we need to talk to others from our healing, not our wound.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking from our wound, it just sounds like petty and all that.
Right.
But,
Right.
and so that's what the point I wanted to get to. So, yes, I still can sound kind of petty and bitter and all that sometimes, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm still mad about it. And,
And I
and
think
so,
it's okay to be that way. I think,
oh, yeah.
when there has been an injustice done to you,
Yes. Yeah.
that's the thing that like I feel, all survivors should be able to speak about. And
Yes.
no one should be able to silence you. I mean, I had the same thing kind of happen where,
Okay.
people reached out and if, from like their camp, and
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
"Oh, that never happened." And I was there,
Yes.
and I got to see and and it makes you just like shut up. Like you have no
Right.
idea. Like who
You
are you?
don't.
I saw you maybe 3 times a year at Christmas and holidays. And how do you think that you have
Yeah.
any, knowledge of what I went
Yeah.
through? And
Yeah.
and so it's laughable, but it's a
Yeah.
way of them silencing you. And
Yeah, and it's also you have to think about it's their comfort level. And the people who told me not to talk,
right.
when I'm looking back now, especially as I've done more healing, they weren't healthy and
Yeah.
they were uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And maybe they were jealous that I could talk about it, but they couldn't.
Hmm.
And I've had a lot of people leave my life because Laura with boundaries and doing this kind of thing. I never used to be this person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is only a 3-year-old right here because I haven't been this person before.
Mm.
I've never been this person where I just talk about things, give my opinion because I was always too scared to even give an opinion because what if I was wrong, whatever that means? Because of course, when you're in narcissistic abuse, they tell you everything is wrong and every opinion you have is wrong. And so I now am learning how to even talk about things like scary things like politics because you're allowed to listen to others and maybe get different ideas and talk about things, like I like to hear those different things. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to open a conversation because when we're silent, the only thing we're doing is protecting the abuser.
Right. Right.
And I don't say his name. Of course, one of my kids was like, Mom, but if people know you, they know who you're talking about. I'm like, I don't care. My
Yeah.
ex knows exactly what I'm doing
Hmm.
because his flying monkeys were watching me on TikTok until I blocked them. But I even on Instagram, like I would post, stories of my book or something, and I saw like his nieces watching my stories. And you know what? Go report back to headquarters. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Right.
So and I talked to him one time and he said, I heard you're calling me a narcissist on social media. And I go, yeah,
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I guess if that's what you want to do with your life." I'm like, "I don't need your permission. Thank
Yeah,
you."
yeah.
But they always think that they want to control you and silence you. And so that's, to me, it's so freeing. Like
It
it's
is.
so freeing.
Yeah, I totally feel the same way. Like I have a newfound, um, like just wisdom about myself and my power. I
Yes.
am okay with who I am. I don't need anybody's external validation like I once did, or, like, is this okay? Or should I say this? Or is this not enough? Or whatever.
Yeah.
You come out of this knowing who you are. And
Yes.
there's like no one like in the world, like I don't care. I don't care what anybody has
Right.
to say, it really truly is. And so I heard this quote one day and it was like, if you wanted me to talk good about you, you should have
Yes.
acted better, right? Like it was
Yes.
something along those lines. And I'm like,
Yes.
yes, like if you wanted to be better, then you should have been better. Like, I'm sorry, this is the
I'm
truth.
just stating
Yeah,
facts.
right.
Like I'm literally stating facts. And the funny thing is, like you said at the beginning, there's everyone's stories are so similar. They're
It
all the
is.
same.
It is.
They use the same playbook. And that's why I love talking about it and people saying, like, oh my God, me too. This is what he did. And it's our little, there's little variations in our stories, but they all have the same playbook.
Right.
Because even with my ex, like when he got with the girlfriend, I was like, okay, so they'll be engaged by this time and married by this time. And my kids were, they told me later that they were talking amongst themselves, going, no, mom's crazy. That's not what's going to happen. It's exactly what happened. Like, I'm like, I know their playbook. I've
Yeah.
read it.
Right.
And
Right.
it's fun to have cracked the code on how things happen, especially like coercive control. I mean, that's not fun, but I mean, like knowing the playbook on coercive control, gaslighting, things like that makes it easy to walk into this world and be like,
Yeah.
that person over there is like manipulating me or trying to manipulate me. And
Right.
no, not everyone's a narcissist, but we all tend to use some sort of coercive control. Listen, because people go like, well, everyone's a little bit of a narcissist, but my intention is not when I wake up, how am I going
Different
to
people.
manipulate you
Right.
today? How am I going to hurt you today? I don't think that way. Do I maybe say like, oh, I'd rather go to this restaurant, whatever.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's not being a narcissist. Narcissists literally wake up and it's all about them all the time, and you are bothering them if you want your opinion involved.
Right. And I think the other thing is malicious intent, right? Like,
Yes,
what's the
exactly.
intent with, hey, I want to go to this restaurant. Can we go here this week? Or can we do
Right.
this? Or please, pretty please, you're
Yeah,
kind of trying to do that. But like when you have
that's
someone, when you are in the relationship with someone who has malicious intent, who's
yes.
playing a long game,
Yeah,
that wants to see you fall and
right.
fail at something, there's a
Yeah,
whole other like psychology behind that because
yeah,
normal people are just trying to get through the day. We're just, hey,
right,
I woke up today, I got to go do this, blah, blah, blah. I never
right.
got 10 feet ahead of me or like, huh, wonder if I can do this to her and she's
How
going
can I manipulate
to
this person
hey,
today? And so that's what it comes down to, because people throw that, oh, we're all little narcissistic, at me all the time.
and
And I'm
good
like,
narcissism is true. I mean, right? You have to have a little bit of
"Mm,
narcissism in
yes,
your, it's a scale, right?
of
It takes
course
like a
we all
little bit of,
do.
right. There's a little
Yeah,
bit
but
of narcissism to be healthy,
yeah, and you do have to think about yourself. But like you said, it's that intent.
Yes.
What is their intent? And that's why even when I think women sometimes come to me for coaching who are like, they want me to give them a checkbox. And okay, if your husband checks all these boxes, you can leave him. No, you don't have to do that.
Mhm.
It's their intent, their behavior. Do their words and actions match?
That's the
You
biggest
do
thing.
not,
Yeah.
you do not need to have, you don't have to have a checklist. You don't have to listen to our stories and go, oh yeah, mine and Danielle and Laura's stories are exactly the same. No, you don't need to do that at all. Just how are you being treated? How do you feel in your body?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be alive. And if I had someone talking like this saying, like,
Mm.
that's a problem, I never knew. I don't care how dumb this sounds, but I never knew that words and actions should match because I was taught that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And he would just say, like, well, you should worry about my intention, not what I actually said and did. My intention was not to hurt you. It's your problem if I hurt you. And so
Mm.
I believed it. I just believed it because I'd been trained all my life. I mean, it's a lot of years. I was with him 33 years. I was
Yeah.
55 when I left. And so
You
it's a
grew
lot of
up in
years.
a lot of, yeah, ways.
Yes. And also, I had some of that in my home. So of course, I just married what was familiar, and I always thought Laura was the problem because Laura was always told she was a problem.
Mm,
And so I was a very big people pleaser, but trying to please everybody made me miserable and nobody was pleased.
right,
So,
right, right. And so what are you doing now for your healing? What kind of things are you filling your life with now?
yeah. Well, I love coaching women because let me tell you, I feel like I'm having a little therapy too.
Hmm.
I was doing therapy, but I'm not doing that right now. I do a lot of things like exercise and lots of things that are going to give you those good chemicals in your brain.
Yeah.
So, I do talk about this here and there that I don't drink anymore, and it's because, well, for one thing, menopause, you're not going to want to after.
Yeah, no,
And so,
I get it.
no,
I
no.
completely stopped drinking. I haven't drank for a year and a half, so
Yeah. And
like
so
the
it's not
process.
that I don't, but this is what I found. When I first got divorced, I would, I'd be in my house. I was living with my brother and I'd get a glass of wine to cook my dinner. And then I was like, why am I doing this? I felt like I was numbing out like I did in my marriage because I used to numb out with alcohol.
Mhm.
And so I just decided I don't need to do that. Now, do I do it sometimes for fun? Yes. But that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's not an everyday thing because I don't need to numb my life because I love my life.
Yeah.
So I try to work on the good chemicals in my brain. So exercising, like fun things like hiking, friend time, good friends, safe friends, where
Mhm.
we can laugh our heads off over nothing
Yeah.
and doing those kinds of things. But I always recommend, the minimum therapy and then some coaching after, because then coaching takes you into the future.
Hmm.
And that really helped me. I did therapy and coaching. That was helpful.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation, because I know that this was spur of the moment, and I thank you so much for being here. But
Mhm.
so what would you say to a person who is just now discovering that they have been in a narcissistic abusive relationship? And what
Mhm.
is there any, take yourself all the way back to the very beginning
Yeah.
of discovery and
Yeah.
what kind of advice would you give to them, or what message would
Yeah.
you give them?
Well, that you're not always going to feel this bad.
Yeah.
You're actually going to feel joy again. When I was at my lowest and I couldn't even breathe, because of I was in so much pain. I thought I would never feel better, and you will feel better. I promise you. And that's why we're talking about it and why I have groups of women that we all talk about it so that you can see that there's hope, and it feels scary, but you're going to do it all afraid and you'll figure it out. You do one step at a time, but you will be okay. You
Mm,
will be.
that's wonderful. So, Laura, how do people get in touch with you and where can they
Yeah.
find you?
So my podcast is called That's Where I'm At Podcast. And if you go to that's where I'm at podcast.com and all over social media, everywhere, you'll find everything. I have links everywhere, but on my website, that's where I'm at podcast.com, you'll find every single thing. You can work with me, you can get my books, do my coaching program, anything.
Awesome. So, thank you so much, Laura, for being a part of Stronger Roots podcast. And thank you all for joining us tonight and being a part of our community. We hope that this podcast helped in some small way and continue to check us out. Every day something new is coming coming your way.
Great.
So
That's
thank you very
awesome.
much, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.